We do is we're fighting to stop the racist abuse of prisoners that are being held in the Department of Corrections in Pennsylvania. My son, Carrington Keys, was incarcerated in 1999 with a sentence of 5 to 20. While incarcerated, he has become a jailhouse lawyer and a civil rights activist. In retaliation for him standing up for himself as well as others, he has spent almost 12 years in solitary confinement and is 8 years beyond his minimum sentencing. During his time in solitary confinement, he has been mentally, physically, and verbally abused and starved to the point of losing 20 pounds. Currently, he has become a part of a group of young men known as the Dallas Six. These men decided to cover their cell doors in protest of these abuses that were occurring at the time that my son was at SCI Dallas. They asked to speak to media and outside officials so that they could air their complaints. The men, in response to their peaceful attempts, the men were beaten, tased, and pepper sprayed, and some of them were left chained and shackled to chairs in a, I guess it's like a solitary confinement room. They were naked. They left them in the room for maybe like 12 hours without even like cleansing them or anything. The men later filed charges against the Department of Correction. And months later, in retaliation to them filing the charges against the Department of Corrections, the Department of Corrections filed a riot charge against the men. So together, these men have been having small victories one by one. Three of the guys have already been released, like they're home now. And the other three, my son and the two other guys, they're all representing themselves. And so far, everything that they have tried to do has been, eventually they're going to win, basically. Everything that the DLC is bringing forward is getting knocked down, so they are going to beat their case against the Department of Corrections. I wanted to speak a little bit about decarcerate, and how there is a school-to-prison pipeline. Back in the 80s, when both of my sons started getting in trouble, I used to always threaten them that they were building more prisons, because it was a known fact that they were building more prisons. And I would threaten them that they were going to be put back into slavery, and little did I know that this was going to come true. In a time nationally where crime rates and incarceration rates are down, Pennsylvania has steadily filled its prisons and even sent prisoners to other states. Pennsylvania has one of the fastest increasing prison populations in America. You can say that inmates are a cash crop in Pennsylvania, because rural cities actually compete for prisons to be built, and they rely on the income from these prisons to keep the poor rural counties financially stable. Prisoners are also the newest fill-ins for outsourcing, or what I call modern-day slavery. Instead of companies going overseas, they can stay here and underpay people. Inmates are a cheap, available resource because they can't call off sick, and there's no need to pay them any benefits. Anytime our governor would rather put money into building prisons than into building great minds, then the school-to-prison pipeline is alive and thriving. It's not just a conspiracy theory, it's in full effect. Since 2006, 22 schools have closed in Pittsburgh, and even more are slated for closing. The lack of funding for educational needs versus the existence of funding for prison expansion equals the school-to-prison pipeline. With more dropouts and less education, our children are being funneled into this path. We need to do all we can to put a stop to building the prisons and to try to find alternatives to incarcerating even more people. We also need to become more active in our educational systems. I know that when my children first started getting in trouble, like she was saying, right now, I think that was at the start of when they were starting to have probation officers in school. And that's kind of how my children even got into the system, is from in school. So, I mean, we need to be more active in the schools, making sure we know what's going on, and even with the Board of Education, make sure we know what's going on with them and be more active in the community. And I don't know, it's like really, like a lot of the stuff that she was saying, I can really relate to it, because a lot of the things that she was saying, as far as like your children will get stopped. I mean, like my kids got a lot of the things on their juvenile record from just being stopped and frisked and riding cars with people. So, I mean, that's a lot of, like we have to really be aware and make sure we know what's going on with our children and be active in the community. Thank you.